Two men stood on the same piece of ground. One of them brought $1,000 of rented gear, a laser level up on a tripod, a GPS in his hand, a screen he kept frowning at. The other man just crouched down and crumbled a handful of dirt between his fingers, gave it a smell, looked hard at what was growing up around his boots. The old hand made up his mind and stood back up, while the young fellow was still squinting at a number he half trusted. Same ground. One of them read it for the cost of stooping over. The men who settled this country read more raw ground than any of us ever will. They did it with 5 simple things that fit in the corner of a wagon. Under $40, the whole set. The land answers the same 5 questions it always did. What is the dirt made of? What lies under the dirt? Where is the water? Which way does it run? And how fast does the ground drink? Point the right tool at each question, and the ground tells you plain. I will hand them to you one at a time, in the order I would use them on a piece I had never walked. By the end of this, you and I will walk a raw 40 acres together and read the whole piece in one afternoon with nothing but this bucket. The first tool is a clear glass jar. An empty pickle jar off the shelf will do just fine. The jar answers the first question. What is my dirt made of? And what it is made of decides almost everything else that follows. Whether the ground holds water or leaks it, whether it grows a garden or chokes one, whether it takes a septic field or turns it right back up at you. You dig down about a foot, fill the jar half with that dirt and the rest with water, add a pinch of dish soap to break it up, and shake it hard for a minute. Then you set it on the windowsill and leave it be. The heavy sand drops out first in about a minute and lands on the bottom. The silt settles over the next hour on top of the sand. The finest clay takes a full day to come down, and it lands on the very top in a smooth, dark band under clear water. Now you read the jar like a gauge, and you can even put a number to it. Measure the whole depth of settled dirt, then measure each band. Mostly sand on the bottom with a thin skim of clay means fast, hungry, leaky ground. A fat clay band up top, a third of the jar or better, means tight ground that holds water and holds it hard. The jar tells you more than the mix if you look close. The color reads you the life in the soil. Dark, near black dirt is rich with the rotted matter that grows things. Pale, tired, yellow-gray dirt is worn out or dead subsoil. And give the open jar a sniff before you shake it. A sweet, earthy smell is living ground. A sour, rotten egg smell means dirt that sits waterlogged and starved of air, the same as a bog, a warning as loud as any layer in the glass. A soil lab charges you $35 to $75 a sample to run that same texture test, and a full workup climbs into the hundreds. The jar does the first and most important read for the price of the pickles you already ate. If you watched the pond video, you saw that jar decide whether a man's pond would hold or run dry by August. That same jar reads a garden bed, a building site, and a septic spot just as plain. The second tool is a length of steel rod, a 5-foot piece of half-inch rebar, sharpened a little on one end, and it may be the most useful thing in the whole bucket. The rod answers the second question. What lies under the ground? Without you digging a hole to find out? You take that rod and push it straight down into the soil, leaning on it with your weight, and you feel what it tells you the whole way down. Soft, easy ground lets it slide. Then it may stop hard and sudden, and that is your rock or your hard pan, the tight buried layer that roots and water both fight to get through. Push it in a dozen spots across a field, and you have mapped where the rock rides shallow and where the good deep soil lies quicker than any machine could. It reads water too. Pull the rod back out and look at it and feel it. Where it comes out wet and cool and dark, You were down in moist ground with water sitting close. Where it comes out dry and dusty its whole length, the water sits deeper. It reads how deep to set a fence post too, telling you where you will hit rock before your digger does. In the dead of winter, push it down to where the ground quits being frozen hard. And that depth is your frost line, exactly how deep to set a water line to ride safe below the freeze. I keep one behind the seat of the truck, and I have found more with it than rock and water. Old buried tile drains, the stone footing of a barn that burned before my time, a gravel road under the grass where a lane used to run. The rod finds the bones of a place. The rod gives you a feel for the ground. That feel only takes you so far. You still have not laid eyes on what is down there. The third tool hands you your own 2 eyes on it, in cross-section. A post-hole digger, $30 or $40 at any farm store. The digger answers the third question. Where is the water and what are the layers? You dig a hole 3 or 4 feet down and then you read the walls of it like a book, top to bottom. The dark, crumbly topsoil up top and how deep it runs before it quits, because that is the layer that grows things and takes a septic trench. The paler subsoil under it, a band of heavy clay or a seam of gravel, wherever they happen to lie. The soil even keeps a record of the water for you, if you learn to read the color. Bright, even, reddish or brown soil all the way down means ground that drains well and dries out. But where you see gray, mottled, blotchy soil with rusty orange streaks running through it, that ground sits waterlogged for a good part of the year. Those rust streaks mark the high water line as sure as a ring in a bathtub. Gray, blotchy dirt, where you meant to build, is the ground warning you the water comes up to here. How deep that dark topsoil runs matters as much as what color it is. A garden or a hayfield wants a good foot or 2 of it to feed a crop, and an orchard wants more. Scrape down and find only 2 or 3 inches of dark over hard pale clay, and you have got a piece that will fight you every season, or a load of hauled-in topsoil in your future. Dig a second hole up on the rise and compare it to the one on the flat. The good dirt rarely lies the same depth all over a piece. And down at the bottom of the hole, you watch. Leave it overnight, and if water weeps in and stands by morning, you just found your water table without a drill rig, and you know almost to the foot how deep it sits. That one hole tells you whether to build there, garden there, dig a pond there, or walk on by. A hole costs you an afternoon. The mistake it saves you costs a lifetime. If reading a whole piece of land with a bucket of cheap tools instead of a truck full of dear ones is the kind of thing you want more of, take a second right now and subscribe. It keeps these old ways coming your way. By now, you know what your dirt is made of. You know what lies under it. What you cannot see yet is the shape of the ground, where it rises, where it falls, where the water gathers when the sky opens up. The fourth tool reads all of that, and it looks too simple to work. A coil of clear plastic hose. The old-timers called it a water level. The hose answers the fourth question. Which way does the ground actually run, and where is dead level? The whole science of it is one plain law that holds every time. Water settles to the very same height at both ends of an open tube, however you snake the hose between them, uphill and down. So you fill a length of clear hose with water, hold one end up against a stake, and carry the other end anywhere you please across the field. Wherever the water settles in that far end, that mark is dead level with the first one. Exact. Every time. Over any distance. Around corners, up rises, and down draws. Think about what that hands you for $5. You can lay the top of a pond dam perfectly level, so it holds full to the brim instead of pouring out the low end. You can run a drainage ditch on a slow, steady grade so the water keeps moving and never stands and never cuts. You can set a floor or a foundation true. You can find the true high spot and low spot of a whole piece and know for certain which way a hard rain will run before the clouds ever show up. The hose reads grade as well as level, which is the trick to good drainage. A ditch that runs flat lets water sit and stand and go sour. A ditch that runs too steep cuts itself into a gully. You want a gentle, steady fall, somewhere around a foot of drop for every 100 feet of run. With the hose, you can measure that fall exactly, foot by foot, and lay a ditch or a water line on a grade that carries the water off slow and clean and never cuts. The fifth tool is a coffee can with the bottom cut out and a watch. Together they read the last question, the one that quietly decides your septic, your garden, and your pond, all three at once. That question is, how fast does the ground drink water? You drive the open can a few inches into the ground where it matters, out where the leach field or the garden would go. Pour it full of water once and let it soak away to wet the ground down. Then fill it again, and this time watch the clock and see how far the water drops in an hour. Water that vanishes in minutes is hungry, sandy, fast-draining ground. That is fine for a septic field, quick to dry after a rain, but thirsty for a garden and useless under a pond. Water that barely moves in an hour is tight clay. It will hold a pond beautifully. It will drown a septic field dead, and it will keep your garden rows soggy long after the neighbors have dried. The rate is the answer, and every use wants a different one. You can even put rough numbers to it, the way the county man does. Water dropping faster than an inch every 3 or 4 minutes is quick, sandy ground. Water that takes an hour to drop an inch is slow, heavy clay. In between is the loam that most every use likes best. Learn those few numbers, and the can turns from a guess into a gauge. That reading is the very thing the county charges you $700 to $2,000 to measure with an official perc test. The can and the watch let you read it yourself first. So you walk into that expensive test already knowing what it will say, and you learn whether a piece is even worth paying to test in the first place. So there they are. The 5 tools: a jar, a rod, a digger, a hose, and a can. And they work best in an order, the way I would walk a new piece. The rod first, because it scouts fast, and in 20 minutes of pushing it, you know where the rock is and where the water hides. The jar next, on the best-looking spots the rod found, to learn what the dirt is. The digger to open a window and confirm the water and the layers with your own eyes. The can to time how fast that spot drinks. And the hose, last of all, once you know where you are building, to lay it out dead level and on grade. Walk it with me quick so you see how they hand the job off one to the next. You step onto a new 40 and start pushing the rod on a rough grid. It slides deep and easy across the middle flat, hits rock a foot down on the pretty little knob by the road, and comes up wet and dark in the back corner. Right there, before you have turned one shovel of dirt, the rod has told you the knob is a no, the wet corner is a no, and the middle flat is worth a hard look. So you run the jar on that flat and pull a good balanced loam. You open a hole and find 3 feet of dark topsoil with water weeping in down at 6 feet, plenty deep to build over. You sink the can and the water drops an inch in 10 minutes, drainage that suits a house and a garden both. And you stretch the hose and learn the flat falls gently off to that wet back corner, which is exactly where your drainage wants to run and where a pond could sit. A whole 40 read in one afternoon for the price of a bucket of tools. That is the trick the old-timers carried and we let slip. I will be honest with you about where the tools stop, because a tool is only ever as smart as the hand that holds it. These 5 gather the facts. The judging stays yours alone. The rod feels a buried boulder exactly the same as it feels solid bedrock, and only your judgment tells the two apart. The jar reads one spot and ground changes across a field, so you test in several. The hose is dead accurate, but read the water wrong at the far end and you will lay your ditch running backward. The tools ask the ground the right questions. You still have to learn how to hear the answer. And I have been fooled holding every one of them. I trusted a probe rod once that stopped hard about 3 feet down, called it bedrock, and laid out my whole plan around it. It was one flat rock the size of a dinner plate, with 6 feet of fine digging right under it. The rod told the honest truth about what it hit. I told myself a story about what it meant. The tool was right. I was hasty. A man with $1,000 laser can still read a piece dead wrong. A man with a jar and a rod and a little patience reads it right, because the tool was never the thing. The knowing was always the thing, and it is free to anybody willing to slow down and learn it. Go fill your own bucket, then tell me down in the comments, which of the 5 would you reach for first on a piece of raw land you had never walked? I have my answer. I would like to hear yours. The land already drew you the map.